you are an Indian and you are a female, and you say what needs to be said in an assertive way. These are the words that to date ring in my ears, and I will never forget them. And she continued to follow to say these traits are viewed as aggressive in the organization. Being Indian, being female, saying things what you need to say in a confident way.
Hi, warm welcome everyone to Megha's FinTech Leadership Mic. Today I have extreme pleasure of having Nidhi Verma. She has got 2 decades plus of experience in the FinTech industry. Nidhi is a renowned trailblazer and has a very data-first approach. Currently, she's leading research and consulting at TransUnion, including both international and US market. Very warm welcome, Nidhi.
Thank you so much, Megha. Thank you for having me here. Super excited to have a authentic conversation with you today.
Awesome. Just to loosen things up, Nidhi, if we have a quick fire chat round, 1 word answer only. Yeah? All right. First, early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Hollywood or Bollywood?
Oh, that's a tough one, Megha. I've lived half my life in the US, half my life in India. I have to say both together. Why not?
Best of both. Why not? What about your dream car?
Porsche Carrera.
Wow. Which color?
White.
Okay. And are you like a last minute person who's still able to put the show together, or very pre-planned and want all the T's to be checked in?
Super organized, super planned. That's the only way to live the life that I live.
Thank you. And I know you're an avid book reader. Tell me something about your favorite book.
I have to say it's everything that Michele Obama has written, right? So she's written 2 books, one being The Becoming, which is super powerful, and the most recent one, The Light We Carry. So I would say Becoming, both the one that's meant for older readers as well as young readers, super empowering and really sets the path, for, especially for the younger generation, to really think about what life path they want to live.
Yeah, beautiful. I also love that book.
Awesome.
Okay, getting into the heart of conversation, Nidhi, we want to know experiences that shaped your career and leadership journey. Were there pivotal moments that played a big part when you look back in your remarkable career?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because there's not just one, there's many, Megha, right? So we're all leading a journey, not necessarily just milestones. But as you know this, I grew up in India, right? I've spent half of my life in India, half of my life in the US now. And I feel very privileged that I was lucky enough to be born into a family that believed in the importance of education, because their belief was good education leads to a fulfilling life. So from the very beginning, I was raised in a Jesuit school environment, which shaped me into a very disciplined and character-oriented human being. The other one I'll say is the mantra of survival of the fittest. That really has influenced my drive and determination in general in life for results, right? So living in a country where you have billions of people with great intellect, huge hunger and drive, means you need to be great at your game, and being good is absolutely not enough. And the last I'll say is the constant pursuit to learn and fail and learn again. It led me to actually start my career, not a lot of people know this, as an entrepreneur at the age of 21. So I expanded my career. My journey is more like a fashion to finance journey. I started my career as a fashion designer, leading a bridal design wear boutique. And then I came into finance as I pursued my MBA in the US. So my original dream was actually to grow my fashion brand into a global brand. And my unique vision was really around showcasing the intricate, the ethnic, the beautiful handcrafted Indian patterns that we've all, been raised on and worn and continue to enjoy doing so, with outfits that have more of a Western influence to it. So keep in mind, this was the mid 90s, right? So the concept of wearing Western wear was maybe too conservative in certain cities, certain parts of India. And there was a clear divide between who's going to wear ethnic wear and who's going to wear Western wear. So I marketed my brand with this unique selling proposition with the consumer in mind who was starting to adapt into the Western Hemisphere culture. And as I stepped into the Western Hemisphere myself to pursue an education, the world of finance seemed super fascinating, especially, and you said this in my intro, so thank you for sharing that, is given the importance of data in decision making in the financial services industry. So I transitioned from the world of fashion to the world of finance with really a deep passion to drive, deliver data led insights, to tell stories that are impactful, stories that are going to influence executives to make critical decisions for the growth of their organizations, to manage their organization. And it's really very similar if you think about it. And sometimes I have to go back and think about the correlation between two paths of my career. Is it's really similar to the very big decisions that brides to be have to make when making the decision what they're going to wear on their important days of events that they're celebrating in their personal lives. When I was working with my fashion brand, very similar to how now I work with executives to influence their decisions with data-led insights. So I know that's a lot from transitioning of the career, as well as I mentioned earlier, growing up in a Jesuit environment, growing up in a family that really supported the power of education. But there are some lessons I've learned that I think have truly shaped my career more than anything, right? So the first one I'll say is just continuing to challenge where I am and being open-minded when pursuing the professional aspirations, right? So for the audience who's listening, right, you may be very passionate about a certain ability or a skill or a task that you enjoy the most, but be open-minded to the fact that you may not be aware where else that skill is applicable, where else that experience is applicable in a different world. And honestly, that can be a very fulfilling or redeeming experience, very similar to my journey where I transitioned that skill from the artistic, creative fashion world into, again, that art and creativity is super important in the world of finance, especially in my role where I have to tell stories with data. The second I'll say is relearning and reinventing yourself, right? So these two things, being open-minded, but also continuing to reinvent myself, continue to reinvent my knowledge base. So you already know this, Megha, but for your audience, right? I was in the banking industry for about 13 years in roles within finance, M&A, strategy, and I truly had the benefit of learning from the best in the business, right? I took those opportunities that made me move to a different country while leaving my 4-year-old behind at home with my husband. I lived in London for a year. So I took those opportunities to relearn, to reinvent myself. And then I decided to actually take those learnings and apply it into a different, not necessarily vertical, but a different world of credit data, research, and insights to then help my clients who are banks and financial institutions to make better decisions. So I made that transition. And I really changed my path. I was on a CFO path. I was working as a CFO as a company into instead being a financial services thought leader. And I made that change because it allowed me to do what I do best. Tell stories with data, solve problems with insights, and influence executive level decisioning, right? So sometimes we see these opportunities as not conventional to what we believe, what we're good at, but rethink that, relearn, reinvent your profile. And over the years, I would say in your career, you can experience diverse roles, diverse projects. You will have a better sense of what you do best, what you enjoy the most in your professional roles, and be open-minded to reinventing those skills and applying those into a different vertical, a different environment where you can get the maximum potential benefit from your career.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it a little bit reminds me of my career of starting with analytics and moving into product, because I started realizing that's what I'm feeling most excited about. And then now toying with this new idea, which I'm doing because I like to present, I like to talk. Yeah. But it's beautiful. How the analogy you gave is something I had not thought, that it's just look serving that niche audience and then now applying
Mhm.
those experiences to the C-level executives here who are also making the D decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that we can compare the brides to be and their aspirations to executives running organizations, but the point being, we live in a world of decision making, right? So the point there was more like, how do you influence those decisions with the specialty, the niche, the skill, the experiences that you bring to the table? Yeah,
Yeah,
different audience.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, Nidhi, we see you presenting on the best of the stages. I see you presenting on the best forums in the US and all international markets. So, we all see a fancy, fancy presentation, fancy stage, fancy Nidhi, mesmerizing the audience. We all see that. So, but I also believe that's more like a tip of the iceberg. We see where you have arrived now, but we maybe are not aware of what led you there. So, were there challenges or adversities which you may have faced in your career? And more importantly, some tips which you want to give to people who are having similar challenges?
Yeah, the big question were there. Absolutely. I don't think there's anything in life that doesn't have challenges. Life and challenge are very synonymous words in my mind. So I I I have certainly had the privilege to work with leaders across organizations. As I said earlier, I've learned from the best, right? And I'd say, Mega, outside of myself, even, right? One common theme that I see in leaders who are great at what they do is they've all faced some form of adversity, right? And I think what distinguishes those who are great to those who are truly purpose driven, making an impact in people's lives and people that they work with is how they dealt with that adversity, right? So it's not just about the challenges, but how do you really turn those challenges into your power, into your strength? That's something that I adopt as one of my own mantras in life, right? I'll be very candid. So I'm putting a disclaimer out there. All of these adversities and challenges I'm about to share, they are not towards a single organization. So putting that disclaimer and being very authentic, right? I think not a lot of people have the opportunity to sit on a platform like yours, Mega, and truly be authentic and openly share the challenges that we as women, especially in industries that are heavily male dominated, i.e. financial services, face. So I'll share a few examples that definitely, to date, empower me to be who I am. I will not forget the day when I had a performance assessment done when I was working at XYZ organization, and I had a female boss, and verbatim, after giving me a 5 out of 5 rating, which is the highest rating you can get, her words were, "You are an Indian and you are a female, and you say what needs to be said in an assertive way." These are the words that to date ring in my ears, and I will never forget them. And she continued to follow to say these traits are viewed as aggressive in the organization. Being Indian, being female, saying things what you need to say in a confident way. Um, I'm going to keep going on with these examples because there's no end to this, right? So, in a different organization, I was told that I'm too direct in giving feedback. And as a female, I should potentially be a little bit more subtle in providing feedback. I've been told that I need to pay attention to the ranks in the room, the hierarchy in the room, before I share my perspectives openly. I can never forget this at a very nice executive dinner. One of the executives, as I was leaving, said, "Thank you for organizing this dinner and making it happen and getting everyone together." When the reality is, I was not the one actually hosting the dinner or even organizing or making the reservations. But because I was only female on that executive table, that was a biased presumption, assumption, right? I've been told not to get in a group work picture because there were 12 males and only 3 females, and that this is a boys only picture. I was told that I would be great in a client facing organization or in meetings because I'm better looking than my boss. I can go on and on about this, right? So, again, this is not towards or against any organization, putting that disclaimer out there. But also being real and open about this, right? So I have too many of these types of examples to share, and I don't want the audience to walk away thinking this is a complaint. I'm not venting. I'm truly being open and sharing the reality that we live in with biased assumptions as well as unconscious bias, exclusions, and presumptions that I face. And I'm sure a lot of people, women, all kinds of genders listening to this face it. And I think being a female who is driven and drives results, these biased opinions to me at those times felt like bullets that basically torn apart my pride, my ambition at the time when I was facing it. But I think the eventual reward for me, Mega, lies in the result, meaning what do you actually do with these adversities, right? How do you become resilient coming out of these adversities? How do you develop strategies to turn out that toxicity? And how we as a community, which I think you're doing a great job, by raising awareness to these biased opinions. And myself, I'm raising two very strong women of my own in my house, two very strong girls. And the way I deal and tune out the toxicity and really turn these adversities into my strength is I find my strength in ensuring that I'm not going to give up, right? This doesn't mean this is the end of the conversation. This doesn't mean that I'm giving up. So my girls who are going to be future leaders of the same organizations that I work with potentially, they don't have to deal with that, right? I find power in ensuring that women in my organization, women I work with on a day-to-day basis, either they report to me or not indirectly, that they don't have to deal with that and empowering them to be able to speak up and make sure that they're raising awareness. As you said at the beginning, Mega, I go to international regions, I have an international role. I have the responsibility of leading very prestigious executive summits that are invite only. And one of the big examples I'll showcase that I think we all have a role to play, and I'm playing my role in this ecosystem, is I want to make sure that every speaker that is selected with the lens of ensuring that there is an equitable female to male ratio, right? I don't want to host a summit in the midst of a financial services community that is heavily male dominated with only male speakers on the stage. So we do have, a lot of times I've heard women say, what can we do? I think we all play a role, right? I highly encourage women that I work with to position themselves as speakers at these events, be able to take those bigger roles, right? So I think those KPIs that you develop for yourself are super important. I'm trying my best to find avenues like this as a great, safe place to bring awareness to such issues so we can actually together work as a community to not just support ourselves, but also share strategies of how you deal with that. So yeah, those are certainly challenges. I would say these challenges, Mega, are more or less human induced, right? They're induced by the environment we live in. They're induced by historical assumptions and biases, whether it's conscious or unconscious. The other I'll say is personal challenges, right? So we all are humans, and I believe in being vulnerable. That's not something I was raised to be believing in, quite frankly. As I said earlier, right? Survival of the fittest means you can't be vulnerable. You have to be great and you have to put your best self out there. But I've learned over the years in relearning about myself and learning from people's perspective that I need to be more vulnerable. So I'll actually follow the example that people have told me to share today is personal example, personal challenges. I'm raising a child who has an intellectual disability. As I said, I have two beautiful girls at home, super blessed to have both of them and really play the role of a strong working mother who can role model for them. And trust me, we as mothers are always being watched, right? We're always being watched for our behaviors. We're being watched for how do we actually deal with these adversities and challenges. And I openly share these challenges at home and bringing it back to the personal experience of raising a daughter with an intellectual disability. First of all, she's the one who's brought a lot of humility and compassion in my life. She's made me the human that I am, not the intellectual person that I am, right? She's made me the person to say, how do we actually make sure that we're living life as a community and helping others and not just living on our own? So I would say raising her is not just only a challenge, but also a blessing in many ways. And I think a lot of us will or are already facing personal challenges that do create pressures in our working environment. I was recently asked by an executive, like, how do you actually manage traveling around the world, leading big teams around the world, and raising a child who needs support? And I think the way you do it is, my secret sauce is my awesome partner, my husband, who, we work together as partners to run the household, to be able to provide each other the support and our children the support. So, yes, life is filled with challenges, adversities. But again, I'm a strong believer in how do you turn that adversity into your power, your strength. And the more you experience those, the more you will find those powers. So pause with that.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
thank you. That's beautiful. And it reminds me also of an incident. Again, I don't want to also take the name of a company, but I went for this large meeting. There were maybe 50 people in the room and 10 people from the team who were presenting. And I found the place with a senior person who was also presenting, and I was also supposed to contribute and support in that presentation. When I took that seat to sit next to that leader, to my surprise, that leader told me in a whispering manner in my ears that the senior most person sits at the center of the table. You should go and sit far behind. And I was taken aback.
Yeah.
I was completely taken aback that I came with the goal to help you look good. I
Hmm.
am not even the main presenter. My goal is to actually make you look good and add, contribute in a positive manner. But I just took it in my stride. I sat towards the end of the table and still kept my spirits high to speak wherever I could, not be so bogged down that I'll just not speak at all. I thought that there are 49 other people also who are there and listening. Let me do my part. But it left a strong feeling, at least for a few days.
Yep. I think, again,
Um,
the fact that you're creating a platform where we're raising awareness to these issues is the start, right? And I think in generations to come, where they are influenced by the awareness through social platforms, if anything, these things are going to change. We're already seeing change in organizations that have put KPIs, that have put specific initiatives to change this dialogue, right? So I think we just need to keep saying what we need to say.
yeah, absolutely. And I think for everybody who's listening there, so irrespective of the stage of career we are in, we will have such incidents. The key
Mhm.
is that do we take that in our stride or we get completely bogged down? So don't get bogged down. Take it in your stride, keep moving, and eventually you'll succeed. We will be like Nidhi, presenting at the best forums, looking nice, talking with data with confidence.
Yes. Step into your power. Yes.
Yeah, right. Talking about role models, so you touched upon it. When we have kids at home or even at office, we are looked upon as role models. I want to hear,
Mhm.
Nidhi, your views. Do you believe in the power of role models? Have you had role models who have played a significant role in your life? And any tips you may want to give to people out here? What, how should they go and scout for role models?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I would say in this digital age that we live in, Mega, we have so much greater visibility to the types of role models and leaders we want to follow, those who demonstrated either resiliency, compassion, or purpose to what fits best for your needs, because everybody has a different drive, everybody has different ways of being coached and influenced, right? So whether you're on social media these days or any other mass media channel, I'd say you can find leaders all around you, right? Who you may associate with, or you may find as your guiding stars to the path that you've chosen for yourself. But I envy these new generations because I didn't grow up with social media and I didn't have access to social platforms while I was growing up, and needed these influencers to chart my path. And I would say I got access to internet at the age of 23. So just imagine that, right? And early in those years, with having no access to social platforms that give you that greater visibility, to leaders who are truly transforming the way the organizations are run, truly transforming the way that young generations are charting their path into success. I actually found as inspiration from observing women like my mom. So my mom's been an all-time, stay-at-home mom who did everything to care for the household. So what I learned from her is, being her daughter, how do I make sure that I become the mother that gives her all purpose to her children and find purpose in raising them as compassionate citizens, right? I found inspiration from my father, who basically defeated some challenging social norms when I was growing up. I imagine I was the first person, not just a girl, or not just gender wise, but in general, I was the only person who had ever left India to come and pursue education. And so my father had to destroy a lot of social norms and go against those social norms just so he could enable the opportunity. And what I've learned from him is, how do I make sure that I'm maximizing every opportunity for my girl's life, right? Um, Outside of the family, I'd say we can always find role models within our own families. We're all inspired by people that we observe on a daily basis. But I also consider accomplished women such as Indra Nooyi, Michelle Obama, Sheryl Sandberg, Kamala Harris, right? These are my professional role models because they have lived the journey and they're the ones creating platforms so women like us can actually share our stories, inspire others to lead a purposeful life. Personally, I also take inspiration from my husband. I know this is the second shout out I'm giving to him, but he's a great partner in the sense, and I'll share a specific example that truly shaped my career. And I consider him my role model because I'll never forget the day when I was stuck in a very major traffic. My daughter was about 4 months old, and she was at a daycare right by my work, and we were driving back. We're stuck in about a 3 to 4 hour road traffic. And as you can imagine, 4 month old baby in your backseat, she was screaming her lungs for food or whatever else she needed an entire ride home. And I remember coming home, Mega, pulling into my garage and taking out her car seat and just being super frustrated and saying, here you go. That's it. I can't work anymore. I can't do this. I can't be the mother and this person who's driven with work and has to drive, in these 3, 4 hour traffic. And his words made a huge difference in my career. You wouldn't see me at the summit stage if he hadn't said this to me. He said, if you give up now, you will never know what you're capable of. So
Wow.
life, I mean, I'm blessed with not just role models, but also supporters, right? I think of his role models as not just people who you want to embody from a purpose, aspiration, philosophy, but also people who are your cheerleaders. They also need to be your supporters and role models, right? So I would say my guidance is, surround yourself with people like that. Surround yourself with people who are um, not just supporting you, but also challenging you. With this last example I gave you, it wasn't just his support. It was just saying, you're going to give up now. That's it. And you'll never know what you could potentially accomplish. And keep in mind, my daughter is now 20 years old, right? This was about 20 years ago. So surround yourself with people who can challenge you. Surround yourself with not just role models and mentors, but also your cheerleaders. And don't just look for that one leader or person. That's my biggest guidance to you because, yes, there might be some people you more or less affiliate with in terms of philosophies and ideologies, but I consider life as this giant, infinite number of puzzle piece. Life is a puzzle game in my mind. And I think that everybody fits that puzzle in a different way. Many people, not just one, can inspire you. They can shape your journey in many different ways. Be open minded to those experiences because learning has no end. I think our views and philosophies are shaped by that diverse set of people and learnings and experiences into that big, infinite, giant puzzle piece. So don't just lean on one ideology because you might just, pigeonhole yourself into a narrow minded path of career.
Wow, that's remarkable. And I loved all the role models and the story you said. Thank you. So, Nidhi, any final set of key takeaways, which, we sometimes, when we look back at our career, we feel that, oh, I wish I knew this many years back. Oh, I wish I knew this, like maybe at the beginning of my career. Are there things which you believe of that order so that people who are listening can start working on that right away?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this one is a bit of a brain teaser, right? Because I don't quite remember everything I did 20 years ago. But if I had to redo it, Mega, right? And if I had to, and I, what I'm about to share is something I coach a lot of the women I work with. Um, there is two or three things that I think have strongly changed my path, and I encourage others to kind of start early, if you will, on these things, right? The number one thing I'll say for me is these are no sequence of priority, but make your intentions clear, loud, and unknown. This is an important one because I think it's critical to ensure that you, as a person, are announcing your career intentions, what you're looking for openly and clearly to stakeholders and leaders within your organization. It's not just enough for you to have line of sight to your aspirations. It's even more important to communicate them out loud, clearly to your leaders, to people who are supporting you, people who are going to be proponents or stakeholders in that journey, to make sure that as opportunities arise, to make sure you are included in those opportunities and you're being considered as you move forward in your career. How I go about this, even to date, I haven't reached my final destination yet. I don't know whoever does. But every few years in my roles, what I end up doing is I self reflect on what's going well, what's not going well. And then I create a path or a vision to expansion for my organization that I'm running or my role based on the feedback that I've heard from stakeholders, based on the feedback I've heard from observations from teammates, based on delivery of results, right? And I share it openly in a written document with relevant leaders in the organization, those who are going to actually influence or approve or be part of the journey in that expansion, right? And the way I do this is really I share it with data backed observations. That's the key, right? So be bold about it and make that as an important tool for change and progress of your career, right? So write it down, write down your career intentions and share it openly. Make it known. I think that's very, very important as you go through those steps and through different functions in the organization. The second for me is this is a bit controversial, but we need to be unapologetic about our strengths, period, especially women. I notice in so many meetings to date, Megan, I'm a little taken back, even to date, even though I've seen so much progress, I've seen so much inclusion and D&I initiatives across the organization, but I still notice to date in meetings that especially young women, they feel the need to apologize for asking questions, or they're afraid to ask questions, or saying something that they feel will be controversial or not welcomed. Be unapologetic. It's showcasing your capabilities. Showcase your curiosity to ask questions. Showcase your drive and ambition in an unapologetic way. And I can't say that word enough. Don't hide it, assuming that you will be called too much. Don't hide it, assuming that if you wear your strength, you can be considered too proud or too aggressive, right? So what the way I think about this and what I do, so I don't want to just share perspectives, but I also want to share some examples of how I do this is, and I would say there's a very subtle difference between being unapologetic and being super aggressive. There's a very fine line. So we do need to be mindful of that, right? We don't want to showcase ourselves in an aggressive manner while being unapologetic about your strengths. And how I manage this fine line is perspectives that I share, I make sure that those are relevant to the organization's goal, organization's purpose. And the question that I ask myself is, what is in it for them before I share that openly, right? Ask yourself that question when you're showcasing your curiosity to learn more, when you're showcasing is what is in it for them, because then you're going to be able to demonstrate what I just shared be unapologetic about your strengths. And the last one I'll say, you asked me earlier, right, my books, but I forgot to say that I am also very much inspired by an author who teaches at Harvard, Adam Grant. He's written many books on philosophies of how to lead successful organizations, but one recent one that I've learned is unlearn what you have learned or challenge your own views. Let me explain a little bit of what I mean by that, right? So, if those of you who haven't read this book, I highly encourage a book by Adam Grant called Think Again. I've benefited tremendously from reading all of his philosophies over the years. And the most recent one has taught me that um, you need to seek out information sometimes that goes against your own views. This goes back to surrounding yourself with people who can challenge you. I'm a researcher by profession. That's what I do for a living. So I appreciate any philosophies, ideologies that are supported by true research, right? By scientists who are writing this. And these are data backed insights. And his recent research found that people who seek others' opinions with different views, talk to them directly about their perspectives, have had a huge impact on their careers. If you talk to somebody about their views, no matter how extreme they are, you may think that they have a very strong belief in something firsthand. It may actually end up building respect for that person. And you may walk away with knowing something that you thought you knew, but you unlearned yourself. I've also learned, not just from this book, but also over the years, and this book particularly showcases real case studies and stories around the fact of how we need to embrace the joy of being wrong. I know this kind of goes against the grain of how we were raised, especially my generation, the Gen X generation, of not being wrong, but you need to, I've truly learned how to embrace the joy of being wrong by learning to detach myself from ideas and opinions, from our beliefs. So, and quite frankly, Mega, it takes tremendous amount of humility to be able to do that, right? To admit to yourself that you are wrong. But science showcases, this book showcases further true stories around how important it is when you do that, and the fact that it doesn't make us less competent. It doesn't even make us that vulnerable, but in fact, it may be favorable in our own ways as we welcome those new ideas, welcome new evidences rather than reject them. So I'll pause with that, but summarizing the three that I mentioned, make your intentions clear, be unapologetic about your strengths, and sometimes challenge your views so you can unlearn from what you've already learned.
Wow, thank you. I have not read that book. I'm just going to order that soon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right. So, Nidhi, just to conclude now, right? If you want one thing to people to remember when they think of Nidhi Verma, what would that be?
Yeah, I'm honestly not ready to have that one sentence that defines my legacy. But I know you've challenged me to think that. So thank you for that. And as I think about it, I'm going to showcase it in the sense of few words that I think form my leadership style as well as my home style, if you will, my personal style. I'd say I'd love to be remembered as a purpose-driven leader who empowers others to lead their best life. And the reason I say that, right? So I'm a big believer in sharing the why behind everything, right? Um, Purpose-driven leader, I think it's really important, Mega, for all of us to have a purpose in life. And we have personal purposes, but we also have professional purposes, right? So for me, the personal purpose is to raise two strong, beautiful women who become contributing citizens to the world. And professional, I think for me, is to develop people who can be the best, be the financial services thought leader. Um, the second part that says empowers others to lead their best, right? I think all of us have different abilities, especially raising a child with special needs has taught me that we're not all the same. We don't do things the same way. We don't all have the same types of abilities, but we're all very unique in our abilities. So one of my life's goals is to make sure that I find what do you do best? What are your strengths? But also what are the areas of development so we can work together to help you live your best life, right? So that's kind of what I think I'd love to be remembered as. But I'm sure, Mega, I'm going to refine it. If you and I talk again on this platform, or otherwise, when I see you next time in India or elsewhere in the world, I'm going to keep refining and honing into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's already quite remarkable, but as you'll keep refining, we are all ears.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nidhi. I really appreciate you coming in here. There were a lot of golden nuggets from today's conversation. So, signing off for now. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for having me.